Now I'm in effect for a lyrical style from the heart to live a mind. An African touch as I drop a new rhyme. Dance floors packed back to back and wall to wall. Dancing, screaming, crying out for jungle's call. As I break and make you move your body left to right, it's time for you to party. Party hard as I flow and go on, but do me a favor, don't slow it down.
I decided to enroll to Costa College. There was Herbert Schwanborn, now known as Bit of Physics, and we were both in the registration queue, you know. And the registrar was nowhere to be seen.
We were at Fantasyland had just opened up in Chicken Inn, the first one, and you know, that's where all the kids used to hang out after school. So Herb and I were freestyling one day in a cypher. As usual, there was a whole crowd around us, and then this beatbox came out of nowhere. You know, this proper loud hip hop beatbox. You know, and everybody was like, "Wow, where's this sound coming from?" You know. And by the time we looked around and we saw it was coming, the crowd party, we saw it was coming from this little petite, short, little, you know, petite, pretty girl, black girl, you know, and she was just killing it, you know. Afterwards we were like, so, yo, you know, where do you learn how to beatbox like that? And she was like, no, I sing too, and I play the lira. My name is Chiwaniso Maraile, you know. And so Herb and I were amazed, and we were just like, yo, you're the one, you know, we're in the studio recording, would you like to come join us? And that's it, she came in with a mbira. Now Chiwaniso was a master mbira player. I still call her the undisputed queen of mbira in Africa. So when she joined A Piece of Ebony, she brought that authentic African sound, and this just really solidified, you know, brought the whole package, the full package together. Once we put mbira in with Chi's majestic African voice, that was it. A Piece of Ebony, you know, was born for real. You know. Later on, we came up with the name Piece of Ebony. It's P-E-A-C-E, by the way, not a piece of something, but peace as in peace in Africa. Piece of Ebony stands for a positive existence allowing cultural expression of ebony. So it was amazing, you know. It was incredible. You know, I remember the first day we hit #1 on HitPick. You know, we were cruising around. By that time, I don't know, we had managed to dangle a Sunny. I think it was a Sunny. It was a blue Sunny car, and we were rolling around and. You know, we had put our stuff on HitPick. It was very fast from the time Piece of Ebony hit. HitPick was, by the way, for the people that don't know, was the main chart in Zimbabwe in the 90s. It ran every day, and it was run by a public voting system. People used to write letters and vote for their favorite songs and artists, or they would phone in and request and vote for their artists. So it was a very democratic process, you know. It was a very democratic chart. It was by the people for the people, you know. So when Piece of Ebony was uploaded into there, and DJs the DJs just loved it. I mean, big up to the Radio 3 DJs, of the golden days, Tich Mataz, DJ Hitman Ozia Singende, Kudzi Marudza, Mr. Cool, Calvin Sefelani, and rest in peace, the great Peter Johns. They all just embraced it one time and they started playing it, you know, because it was a make or break type of thing. This type of thing had never been done in Zimbabwe before. And to make it worse with mbira, you know, that was a tall order, you know. So from like, you know, coming in at number 20 to the next day being on number 5, and like on the third day being on number 1, you know. It was a meteoric rise, as they say. You know, so we were driving around listening to HitPick, and when it got to number 5, because we had been on number 5, we were not there, which was cool, you know. Then number 4 was someone else. Then number 3, you know, number 2 we went there, so we started getting worried. What's going on? You know, you're like, oh, what's this now? And then when number 1 came, it was like boom, you know. So we went straight from number 5 to number 1, and I remember us in the car just screaming and hugging each other, you know, and saying, wow, we've done it, you know. It was unbelievable. Yeah, great feeling. No. Yeah, we started getting, like, they would do shows like Star Bright,
which was like the idols, the pop idols, whatever, like, you know. We all of a sudden we were special VIP guests at functions like that. Started doing a whole lot of adverts, I remember. We also we were the first choice for any international acts coming in, like Beats International and Soul to Soul, you know. We performed with them when they came through. So yeah, as far as live shows, yeah, we did, and then we did a good performance at Harry Margolis, but how we wanted to market it, you know, once Piece of Ebony, That Rise hit, because we always knew we were more of an international act, you know what I mean? So we always had our eyes on the big prize, you know? So we had already sent our demos out and our music out to all the major record labels, Sony and, you know, BMG, and all that. So it wasn't long before Gallo Records in South Africa showed some interest in us, and we ended up being offered a deal with them. From there, we hit South Africa pretty fast. They sent down a professional video crew with the hottest director, Nick Hofmeyer, who's now like a, you know, very distinguished South African filmmaker. And they came and did an awesome video for one of our tracks, an international video. And shortly afterwards, we were invited over to South Africa to go and check out the record label and, you know, sign the deal. So South Africa was great. They received us well. You know, they loved our music. But unfortunately, the deal that we signed was it was a terrible deal. You know, and at the time we were very young. You know, and we weren't really that business savvy. I mean, we put our future into other people's hands. You know. And we thought they had our best interests at heart, but you know, it seemed that, you know, they were out for themselves. So things went sour in South Africa due to a lack of you know, business experience. For one, we didn't sign directly to the label. You know, we were convinced that signing to our local producers company would be a better plan. You know, so we thought, okay, this kind of makes sense, you know. But we didn't know that would, in the future, play against us, because then we were not privy to what was going on with the record sales and you know what I mean, with the record company. Because when we did finally try to find out what was going on, they were like, oh, well, you're not signed to us, you know, you signed to them, talk to them, kind of thing. And so we kind of were bounced around the middle, hey, no, talk to him, or no, you better talk to him, type of thing. So, you know, it was out of our hands, basically. That's what I've got to say at this moment. We enjoyed the high life. You know, I mean, you have to understand that's the way the record business went those days. I mean, it's not just us in Africa. If you look at big acts, you know, you look at NWA, you look at Run DMC, you look at any of those guys. Ice Cube was still fighting for his money, you know, well into the 90s, and you know, that's the way the record industry was those days. You know, when it's time to get your money, they'll be like, so you know, you think all those hotels and all those airplanes and all those clothes and, you know, where do you think that came from? You know, and when they start piling up, you know, stuff like that at you, you actually start, you know, begin to believe it. You know, and that's the way it was those days. So because A Piece of Ebony was marketed in such a way as superstars, basically, as a super act, as a super group, you know, we were supposed to go on a South African tour and a world tour to really boost that, and that's where our main strength lied. You know, it lied in our presence, our image, you know, our freshness, our live performance, you know. If we had gone on that world tour, we would have absolutely smashed it. I mean, you all know what kind of a performer Chiwoniso was. You all know what kind of a performer Metaphysics was. How I am, you know. I mean, we were some people like to, you know, compare us to the Fugees or whatever. But you know, it was something like that. So that was really where the strength lay. And by then cutting our you know, proposed world tour. For lack of finance, That's what we were told. You know, that was another thing that really, you know, really destroyed the Peace of Ebony's rise. You know, was them claiming that they didn't have enough money for the tour. I'd always been into gangster rap and stuff, you know. Like in Piece of Ebony, there was two extremes, you know. Herb was, and is still a very disciplined individual. You could say Piece of Ebony was the good guy, you know what I mean, and I was the bad boy. So it was very easy for me to get pulled into the criminal life, you know what I mean, into the, you know, the world of crime. So that's what happened to me basically. I became you know what I mean, I became a hustler, you know. I was dealing, you know, in various illegal activities. That was really, you know, what I was enjoying doing at the time. You know, little did I know that, as we all know, it all ends up with some disastrous, consequences. Yeah, when I got back home, I decided that, you know, this is not life. I mean, I left South Africa. I saw that this was not the way forward for me, you know, and I came back home. Well, so that was that chapter of South Africa closed. You know, I was still doing music, you know, so we started, that's basically where Piece of Ebony kind of, and then Herbert came back home as well. So we were all three of us back home now. Chiwalisa, by the way, she did not come with us to South Africa. Her father at the time, he forbid it. You know, she was younger than us, by the way. Chiwalisa was about 15, 16 when I think she's actually 15. When Piece of Ebony was really doing their thing. So you know, I've always had a problem with addiction since you know, and it gradually, you know, in South Africa it hit its all-time peak. You know what I mean? Where I was now a dealer, so I had a lot of it. You know, I had a lot of drugs, I had a lot of women constantly around me, you know what I mean? You know, I really started hitting the drugs hard. And when I came back to Zimbabwe, there was the ready market as well there, you know, I mean, I wasn't dealing as much, you know, but, you know, how it is when you're around the life of drugs and party, it's always around you, there's always something going down. And eventually, that was my lifestyle for many, many, many years. You know, and eventually when I hit my 30s, it started to really show, you know, the devastation the havoc that it was wreaking in my life, to the point where, you know, I just lost my, you know, credibility, you know, I lost the fire, you know, and whatever I was trying to do looked good to me, but as I look back now, you know, I was just really, gradually, it doesn't hit you right there, you know, addiction really kind of messes up your life very subtly, you know, and gradually, where you do not notice it slipping away, you know, and by the time you do realize it, you've hit rock bottom, you know, you've lost your status, you know, one by one, your friends and the important people start to move away, life, you know, life evolves and you find yourself, you know, stagnant, if not in a worse situation than your contemporaries, you know. And so, you know, I don't know about other people, but with me, I had to hit rock bottom before I realized. The thing about addiction is that an addict is a liar, you know. You lie about everything to try and get through, you know. You become very self-centered, you know, to achieve what you have to achieve, you know. And so that begins to affect people. They move away from you, not because they want to, but because you now become, you know, detrimental to other people's lives. So that's where the support system fades away, and it's because of your own doing. It's not because people don't want to be there for you, but you know, you kind of, you know, do that. You bring out the worst in people as an addict. So yeah, I mean, you find yourself, it's a very lonely existence, you know, and then so to get something you have to lie again. So yeah, it's very lonely. You know, but people have always believed in me, so
I guess I was lucky in that way that they were always, you know, if they had seen some kind of change, they were always, you know, willing to be there for me. But eventually, you know, ultimately it's your choice, you know what I mean, if you want to get back on track, and that's what I decided to do, because I decided to take my destiny into my own hands and really, you know, do a rehab stint and, you know, get myself together. That life was long, too long to even say, you know, it was, you know, a decade, maybe a decade and a half, you know, maybe 15 years of just continuously ruining all my chances. A lot of my friends started dying, you know what I mean, or going to prison, or just, you know, being destitute, you know. Yeah, there were those who have made it, you know, and been very successful, you know, and some have just, you know. So a lot of my friends ended up, you know, actually losing their lives. That finality of my decision that, you know, this is it, man. If I do not, second week that I decided to go to church and, you know, get it together, the first lockdown came into effect. I locked myself up for 6 months. I did not go out of my gate, you know, because I knew if I just stepped out, I'd meet the, you know, the usual temptations, you know. So I just started praying a lot, you know, eating right, and my friend Brett would come over twice a week or so and would pray. And I've got another friend who's quite anonymous. I won't mention his name, but he's like a yoga kind of guru, and he specializes in. He taught me how to do pranayama breathing, which is an Indian breathing and meditation style of living. And it's very cleansing, very healthy, and it helps you focus on the positive things in life, you know. And that's how I began my rehabilitation. My life's been a roller coaster, you know. It was. I'd always known, you know. We used to joke about it though. People used to say, "Man, you should write a book, you know, about your life." So it was always kind of there, you know, that I would write this book. But there was, you know, there was no real kind of. There wouldn't have been a real substance to the book if, you know, because there was no end to the book if I had to have written one. I mean, I couldn't have written one earlier in my life because the whole story would not have made sense in the end. And for the first 2 weeks, I just stared at that blank page and I was like, where do I start, you know? I think it's something that puts a lot of people off this kind of, you know, rehabilitation exercise because, you know, where do you start, you know? I mean, I wasn't trained as an author. You know, I wasn't trained on how to write a story, how do you structure a book, how do you, you know, plot a book, how do you deal with characters, you know, I didn't know the first thing about it. I mean, I can write raps, which is probably, you know, what really helped me is kind of knowing where to start a story, how to keep people engaged and how to end it. You know, that's a verse in hip-hop music. So I suppose that came into play, so as I started writing this diary, and then when I finally got into my flow of it, you know, and then I, you know, went back to, you know, from my father's time, you know, trying to figure out where my family came from, where, you know, and I thought, okay, what did my father do? My father was a celebrated African journalist, you know, a distinguished African journalist, and once I wrote that first line down, that was it. It all just opened, the floodgates opened, and everything just started pouring out. Piece of Ebony, we decided as our 30th year anniversary, that's coming up next year. And like I said, Piece of Ebony was founded in '91, and then ultimately we released in '92. You know, and '92 was really our big year. So that would make it 30 years, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it came right now. A big you know, milestone in our history, you know, as the pioneers of African hip hop, you know, for us
to just remind people of where we started, where the hip hop movement started, how it started in Africa. The plan for our 30th year celebrations is to do a documentary film. Okay. Then we are also starting a website, which is going to be the main platform and the main shop market, if you will, of all this African talent, you know what I mean, that we're going to curate and promote. It's called Zinu.com. I'm recording the new piece of Ebony music, you know. Documentary also with the whole project is going to be a big tribute, proper tribute to Chioniso, the late great Chioniso Maraire, who was the undisputed queen of Lira of Africa. .com, you'll be able to buy the music. You'll be able to be closer to the artists. You know, it's gonna have a few categories in it. So when we say the foundation will basically be, you know, identifying and nurturing the best new talent. Zinu will be the outlet in which we will market and you know, curate the talent. So there will be categories in Zinu.com. There'll be a category for fine art or for abstract art or whatever for painters. There'll be, you know, then the sculptor and all things to do with art. There'll be a music you know, section. There'll be a modeling photography section, agency, and literature section as well. So you will be able to go onto Zinu.com, browse, you know, through our different artist profiles, you know what I mean, and be able to just, you know what I mean, to download, stream their work, and, you know, just follow their stuff.